Welcome to Slight Reliability, the show where we learn SRE and observability 1 week at a time. I'm Stephen Townsend. Welcome back to Slight Reliability. I'm Stephen Townsend, and this is the show where we learn about SRE and observability 1 week at a time. There's packing boxes in the background because I'm moving house, hopefully this weekend, all things going to plan. So maybe next time or the time after that you see me, I'll be in a different location for the first time in quite a long time. Today I'm talking about observability vendor lock-in, and I'll talk about what that is and what's being done about it at the moment, but what I think are the unaddressed areas of lock-in, which we're not talking about. So what do I mean by vendor lock-in? What I mean is when you implement an observability tool, you generally out of the box don't get that much value out of it. It'll provide you a bunch of graphs, a bunch of metrics, but they won't have any context about your technology, your business, your customers. It just won't be that valuable. And that's something I see quite often is observability tools which have been purchased and installed or set up or connected and then never really modified. So there's not a lot of value in that. If you want to get real value out of your observability tooling, then you need to instrument your code or at least provide the observability tool the configuration required to understand your context. And there are significant amounts of work required to do that over time, and you build up these assets. And if you are instrumenting your code, you are literally changing your application code. So let's say you're doing this for a while and you're getting some value out of it, and after a while you come to the realization that this tool is no longer serving your needs. How do you change tools? It's pretty difficult because you've invested so much time to the point where you've literally got code in your application designed for this particular observability tool. So to rip all that out and then redo it again for a new tool is extremely complicated and costly. And most organizations and teams justifiably wouldn't have appetite to go and do that. So they end up locked in to that particular observability vendor, which they've invested so much time into. That's not ideal. We want to have the ability for organizations to change vendors as required. So I'm sure that pretty much everyone who listens to this podcast is aware of the OpenTelemetry project. And one of the big selling points of OpenTelemetry is it breaks you away from vendor lock-in. What OpenTelemetry does is it separates out data collection from data storage and processing and all the other things that we need to do with it. So that's pretty cool. It's able to achieve this because it has a universal way to instrument your code and your applications, and it has a common protocol to transmit and receive telemetry data as well. And also the OpenTelemetry collector helps provide that unified way of collecting and then transmitting telemetry wherever you need. So in effect, it's breaking vendor lock-in from the perspective of how you collect your telemetry data versus what you do with it. You store it, process it, visualize it, all the other stuff. That's great. But there's another kind of vendor lock-in. So once you've collected it, then you need to store that telemetry data somewhere. And pretty much every observability tool that I'm aware of has bundled together the storage of telemetry data with the visualization and the analysis and the processing and the alerting, all the other stuff that we do with that data. And I think that is in a more insidious kind of vendor lock-in because storage is a commodity. We should be able to store our telemetry data in anything. Just store it in some NoSQL database or a SQL database. It doesn't matter. There's heaps of databases out there which are more than capable of storing the kind of telemetry data that we need. But instead, what we end up with is paying for observability vendors to store our telemetry in their proprietary databases. So we end up paying, if it's a cloud product, to ingest it, to store it, and then to retrieve it. I don't think that's the ideal model, and there are better ways to do things. So when I used to do performance testing, I used to use this tool from the BI, sort of data analytics space called Tableau. And in the BI world, there is a different approach. You can store your data in wherever you want it, usually a collection of commoditized storage put together into some kind of data warehouse, but it's common technologies that we all know how to use and can connect to it from multiple different places. And then you have a tool like Tableau. which is a data analysis and visualization tool. I used it to analyze performance test results and monitoring data. It's very good at that, but it's generally used to connect to sort of BI intelligence, business data to understand what's happening within an organization. And I think that's a good model. You have a specialized tool which is very good at connecting to data wherever it is and presenting it and visualizing and exploring that data in any way you like. But it's not forcing you to store your data in some kind of proprietary database, and it's not charging you to ingest it and store it and then retrieve it again. And that's what I'd like to see for the observability space. Why can't we do that? Why are our observability vendors so dead set on us storing our telemetry in their proprietary databases? There is an argument that I've heard that traditional databases that are very good at storing telemetry data, they're not performant enough. We need to design specialist databases for this purpose. I don't know whether I buy that or not. I think I'd still like the option. Even if it's slow, it might be better for me in my organization to store my data in, I don't know, Cosmos database in Azure, for example. Even if it's 5 times slower, it might give me a lot more flexibility with what I do with that data, which is what I value more. I also think that a vendor who is focused on taking and connecting and pulling in data and presenting it to you and helping you explore it, focusing on that is where the real value is. But if you have a company who's also spending a lot of engineering resource and design resource into how they store and ingest and retrieve all this telemetry data, I don't think it leads to great outcomes. So a bit of a spicy take. The observability tools that I've used to date don't give me the ability to explore the data in the way that I want, with the freedom that I want, and to rearrange and present and run calculations on it in a way which allows me to answer the questions that I need to answer. And that's where I think a dedicated visualization platform, which is separate from where the data is stored, is a good option. So why not just use Tableau? We can just have this BI tool and connect to our telemetry data wherever it is, provided we can get it into commoditized storage. Yep, well, Tableau is not really designed for observability data, primarily because it's not designed for real-time, dynamic, constantly changing data, right? It's more designed for connecting to data which is changing maybe every hour, but it's more about generating reports. Whereas I think what we need is a tool like Tableau, but with that real-time monitoring focus that we need for observability. So what I'm really saying here is that OpenTelemetry has provided us a way to break free from vendor lock-in within the confines of separating data collection from data storage. But we still have data storage and visualization and analysis and processing and alerting all bundled together. And that's another kind of vendor lock-in. It's not easy to break free from that and say, you know what, I'm going to just discard historic data and move to a different tool. And even when it is convenient just to switch to a different tool because we don't need any historic data, the tools themselves forcing us to use their proprietary databases and data stores, that's not a great outcome in my opinion for customers. I'd like to see telemetry data storage be commoditized in a way which is open and more and extensible, and we can connect to it from all kinds of tools and programming languages and whatever we need to explore the data and make sense of it and give us input to drive our businesses and our technology. So that's all I wanted to say, and that's another episode of Slight Reliability. Thank you once again for tuning in. Hope you have a wonderful week. I may be a little quiet at the moment just because of the house move. Got a sick cat. There's a bunch of stuff going on, but I'm hoping to get a new episode out every week still, so see you next time.